This Black History Month, we are highlighting people in our community who represent Black history happening right now.
Destiny Richards spoke to one teacher at NewTech Skills Center, Tommy Williams, who's had some challenges encouraging students to become police officers. Destiny.
That's right. He's the only Black instructor at NewTech Skills Center, taking on a heavy task, encouraging his students, especially his students of color, to pursue these careers after seeing the way some Black people have been treated by police in recent years. Tommy Williams has a background in social work, CPS investigation, and at the Downtown Juvenile Detention Center. He spoke with me about how he's preparing his students to enter the workforce today. How would you say that experience has gone for you so far in these last 4 years?
At first, it was a little overwhelming, being able to, working with the curriculum, and some of the curriculum I had to, do from scratch, make up from scratch. But now I have a really good system. We have squads. We have 4 squads, squad leaders, and these are all leadership positions for my students to apply for. I have a captain, and the captain is responsible to really help run the program. So a lot of things are now coming into play with my students being out in the community. They're now working with community-oriented policing services, and so they're able to do their internship there. And I also have them connected with Spokane Explorers program, so that really helps out to where they're really getting hands-on experience, which that was the whole goal from the beginning, is to get them out in the community.
Before this interview, you expressed that some students were shying away from pursuing careers in law enforcement, especially in recent years. You've felt that sentiment. So why is that?
Well, you had a lot of publicity around George Floyd. You had a lot of publicity around the other African Americans who were shot and killed or brutally beaten because of whatever, right? And they're violating their civil rights of whatever it may be. And then you see people that don't look like them actually being the aggressors. And that is where it's been hard for me to get young people, especially young people of color, to be involved in criminal justice, because they see what goes on. They're like, well, I don't want to be a part of that. And I understand them, and I'm honest with them about that too. When that was going on, I didn't want to teach criminal justice anymore. I was like, I had an internal conflict about that because of what was going on, but I eventually had to change my mind about that, because you can only make changes from within. And so I'm literally on the front line, and my job is to get these young people to grow up in a system that they see themselves being a part of the system, but then also preparing them of what they're going to go into.
And whenever that was happening in real time, what were you talking about with your students? How were they feeling?
Well, first I was talking about this with my sons. I have biracial boys that are that I have to have the talk with, as far as how do you, when you come into contact with a law enforcement officer, you have to keep it short. You got to know what your rights are. You have to be respectful, yes sir, no sir, and knowing that I want to have them to come home safely, right? But when that happened, we were doing online because of the pandemic, the shutdown, and there's a lot of things going on. And I think if we weren't in a pandemic, I don't think it would have gotten that much publicity. I hate to say that, but because everybody was shut down in their houses, watching TV all the time, the news was always on, and that video clip was like Rodney
playing
King
all the time.
It was like it was looping all the time, and so I was conflicted.
Tell me about your class right now and how things may have changed their perspective on law enforcement since 2 years ago.
I know I've had a lot of students change their minds, but they stay in the class, and not to say it's because of me, but they say, well, I'm here because of you.
Yeah.
So my students call me Mr. T, and they're like, Mr. T, I'm just going to, I like what you're doing, and they like how they feel when they leave me, and that's my whole goal, is that I want them to leave inspired. I want them to leave thinking that they can make a difference no matter what career they go into. And I have a few that they're sticking to law enforcement. I have a few that wants to go in the military. But again, it's more of getting their minds open to what CrimJ is about. The first thing we go through is our morals, and as far as what do you stand for. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So in teaching them about, you may have a partner one day as a police officer who may do things that mean morally, against what you stand for. And if you don't say something about it, then you are going to be just as bad as them. So you have to stand up for that now, and that's one of my main focuses, to get just not kids of color, but all of my students to understand that. And restorative justice is one of the main pieces that I focus on, is to get them to understand how to repair harm when you create harm. And as a law enforcement officer, sometimes you create harm, and how do you resolve that? And you can use some kind of restorative practice in order to do that. And so that's how I start my class off at the beginning of the year, is we study restorative justice practices and how that can help in any setting. I've had 4 African-American students, no, 3 African-American students. 1, Cody, is a co-op officer, so he's about to graduate from Eastern. He's in line to be a police officer, so he will be my first African-American student that came through my program to actually be a police officer. And he's going to come back and talk to my students. But I don't want to be counting on one hand of how many students they are. I just want to be able to not be able to do that. I want to have, dozens to come through this program, but it's going to take a long time and a lot of work, and I'm prepared to do it.
For more Black History Month stories and conversations, you can see it all on our website, kxly.com/Black History Month. Reporting in studio, Destiny Richards, 4 News Now.